Last time on Oz Hour.
Okay, last time on Oz Hour, it's a whole new not world, it's a whole new everything else. We meet Betsy and Hank. They get thrown off a boat, sounds real familiar. And they get just taken to some land that has roses with heads and a greenhouse and has a governor who's in charge of them, he's the gardener, so yeah, he's just doing that. And he is like, y'all gotta go because it's against the law to be here. And then all of a sudden Shaggy Man fucking shows up by falling into something, I think, and he has the love magnet for some reason, and so everyone's falling in love with him, but they're still like, y'all still gotta go. So it's time to go. And they were like, oh yeah, they go and meet the other roses, the royal roses or something, I can't remember, and it's the princess. They pluck the princess, and then everyone hates that they did that, and then they kick them all out, even though the governor was obsessed with Shaggy Man. He's like, I love you, but you gotta go. So they all go, and then they figure out that their journey this book is going to be looking for, what's his name, Shaggy's brother, long lost brother, with I can't even get into it. I'm done.
Hi there, and welcome to episode 45 of Oz Hour, the only place where you can hear everything you never knew about the wonderful and strange land of Oz.
That's right. With the help of some alcohol, we will be discussing each of the 14 books in L. Frank Baum's Wizard of Oz series.
Today, we will be continuing with Book 8, Tik-Tok of Oz, covering chapters 7 through 8.
We're your hosts, Blake Stone.
And Wyatt Swingham.
And joining us is our resident Oz initiate, America's sweetheart, Hannah Aguirre.
Good morning. Or good after evening.
That was cute.
You covered all your bases. No matter when someone's listening.
Everybody
it'll work.
loves a beautiful woman who doesn't know what time of day it is.
Yeah.
That is
Must
so
be
charming.
so freeing.
It's pretty nice.
Hannah, you just played last time on where you recapped what happened last time in Tik-Tok of Oz. It's a whole new book. It's a whole new everything. It quite literally is.
It's the second episode, though, so it's actually the same book, but a very different set of characters.
That's true. She was recapping the second episode of the book. I did not even think about that. Why? How long did it take her to cover it?
That was 1 minute and 36 seconds.
Okay,
yeah, not bad.
Time's not so bad. I've seen much worse.
I think last time it was like 2 minutes. So
it was pretty bad.
I remembered.
They just are
deleting
throwing
that.
they're throwing a lot of things in my direction.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's a new book. Like,
Yeah.
seriously. But okay, for the listeners, Shaggy falls into the greenhouse. You said he
That's
fell
what it
into
was.
something. Falls into the room they're in.
I was like, I couldn't even think of where they were. I was like, there's something there, and things break.
The roses were in the royal garden. The governor is just a royal gardener.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I was saying governor thinking I was saying gardener, and then saying gardener thinking I was saying governor.
That makes sense, actually.
It kind of works, though, because
That makes sense.
he kind of is the governor since there's no, ruler. So, it
Yeah.
He's the
almost
royal
works.
governor of the garden.
Maybe there's a joke in there.
Oh.
Maybe that's what he was
Yeah.
going for.
The only other thing I would say is you kind of skipped over selecting the princess out of the garden. So we just kind of got to, and then they go. But just to remind our listeners, Betsy, Shaggy, Hank, and Ozga, the Rose Princess, are on the way.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else, Wyatt?
No, that's
Oh wait,
all.
what about the brother? And
We don't know his name yet, but he's with the Metal Monarch, the Gnome King.
the
Did
Metal
you-
Monarch.
Yes.
That's what I was trying to say at the end, and then I looked at the time, and then I couldn't remember Metal Monarch.
And his name is Regato, actually.
Yeah,
Regado.
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 Oh, I was like,
Regado,
Regato. That's
yeah.
my favorite pasta.
Shut up. Well, before we started recording, Wyatt made some cocktails. What are we drinking?
Tonight we are drinking Wildflower Wisdom. It is some gin, some rose syrup, some lavender sugar. We'll see how it tastes. And vermouth.
Oh, shit.
What's up?
Slurp. Now hold on a gosh darn minute.
Okay,
Yeah.
I did ask for apple juice.
Do you feel like you got it tonight?
Kind of feel like I got apple juice. It weirdly tastes like
pretty
apple.
tasty.
Like it has a little. Oh, the aftertaste is not apple juice though.
It's
No,
floral.
it's a little more
It's more
like
herb.
herbaceous, but that's delightful. I
Yeah.
love it. On ice, you would probably lose some of the bitterness. At the
Yeah.
end.
And with some lemon juice, that might be it.
This is the drink of the summer, folks. Follow our Instagram at Oz Hour to check it out.
Chapter 7. Polychrome's pitiful plight.
Oh yeah, I forgot they're all
Alliteration.
the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
And it's polychrome.
Oh. I literally just heard pitiful polite. I don't even think that's what you said.
You
It
heard
is.
pop. So we begin with the Rain King, who has gotten too much water in his basin, and he spilled some over the brim.
It's just another cold open.
It's
All of
another
a
cold
sudden,
open.
we're with the Rain King overflowing his basin.
So when the Rain King's basin overflows, it causes it to rain in a certain part of the country.
So the rainbow, capital R, by the way, just like God or him. The rainbow, when this
Pride.
happens, he goes off to basically show off the colors. And he's like, oh yeah, look at this fucking rainbow, like after the sky is clear. And everybody loves it, but they only ever see it from afar. And that's the reason that you've never probably seen the daughters of the rainbow dancing all around it and on it.
Because they're dancing.
They're going off, actually.
Yeah, they're like,
yeah. They have strobes, but they're like lanterns.
this particular spill of rain happened in a location where there weren't many people, but all the same, the rainbow came, his daughters came and danced down the arch of the side. At the front of the line is the rainbow's loveliest daughter, Polychrome.
Yeah. She is lovelier than any girl on Earth. And she likes to go down and walk on the earth because she thinks it's fun.
She is a little bit of a risk taker. She's a little crazier than her
Reckless.
sisters. She's reckless.
Does
but-
she know Shaggy Man?
So they
I can't. Were they?
They
in the
were
same
both
They
on
were
the
on
road,
the road
to
to
Oz.
Oz.
It
Yeah.
was
Okay.
the Shaggy Man, Button Bright, Polychrome, and Dorothy.
Yeah.
And that's important to bring up, so I'm glad you did.
yeah.
Polychrome, she jumps down on the ground. She's dancing on the ground. She's like, "Come on, sisters!" And they're like, "Okay." And they like kind of jump down on the ground, but then they jump right back up on the rainbow. They're like,
Yeah.
"Okay, we don't want to get stuck down here."
Yeah.
we're scared.
But Polychrome's enjoying herself. She's just kind of like dancing around because it's interesting. Like usually she's like on clouds or on a rainbow.
This is
so
like dancing on a table for her.
Well, she
Exactly,
can feel like
she's-
they
Yes.
describe like the dampness and the coldness,
And it's
of
just, like,
what she's
solid,
feeling.
too,
Like
you
it's just
know.
something new between her toesies.
Yeah.
yeah. But then she looks up and the rainbow is gone, and she's like,
Oh my god.
"Oh,
They
fuck."
did say.
Yeah,
She's
they
like,
did
"What?"
say. She's like, she says, "Oh fuck."
She says, "Oh fuck, not again."
Oh, yeah.
Womp womp.
I was like, wait, she actually said, "Oh fuck."
No, that's what I had in my notes.
So is that what happened last time then to her?
Well,
I can't remember her origin.
Pretty much. She
Last
danced
time-
too close to the surface, and the rainbow left without her.
Yeah.
Okay.
Last time though, she kind
Damn,
of
that
slid
rainbow's moving
off of it.
fast.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, it just disappears, but I mean, maybe it
Oh,
does.
you're right.
I've
In
never
the
seen
other one, she like got too close to the edge.
Yeah,
right?
and then she slid to the earth, and then couldn't climb back up. Now it seems more like they can just grab onto it, and like
Yeah,
it'll
they can
pull them
run
away.
Their
down
little
it.
hooks in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she is like, like this is the second time this has happened, like, and now we're. She also says that her sisters are gonna go back to their sky palaces, and I'm like, oh my god, what does the sky
I
palace?
really
want to
see that.
Have to see that.
And does she like? I wonder. I mean, this is like I think out of the question. Her.
What is it?
I'm a little high. But my genuine question though is like, does she land anywhere? So like, can she like land in like the U.S.?
Yeah, I think
Anywhere
so.
there be rain, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
anywhere there's mortals. Yeah,
Or is
the
it just
rainbow
like
service
she's
is
able to only
everywhere.
land in Oz? Because then that means rainbow people are the only people that can enter Oz.
You're right.
So here's the thing, and that actually kind of like relates to like how I think I would answer that question, which is like the rainbow, I mean, it rains so many places at once, right? So the rainbow just like goes where it needs to be. And he has so many daughters. Polychrome maybe knows 20 of them. But then there's like
This is her neighborhood.
hundreds, yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
She reigns in fairy countries.
Okay.
Other rain reigns in Portland.
Oh, okay.
Maybe.
I like that.
There's no one I can consult except for
I
Glinda's
know.
magic book.
The one that knows all.
But Polychrome basically just kind of sits down and cries. Like she crouches down on the like barren wasteland that she's in.
Yeah, she's on a big rock.
If you if you recall, we're seeing a lot of just like bare nothing in this book so far. And she just like sits there and she cries, like thinking of what to do next.
And that is how Betsy Bobbin finds her. Betsy Bobbin is walking along. She sees this like, again, beautiful fairy girl, like with her big like gossamer, like, you know, wispy like fucking cloak and dress. And she's just like a vision. And she runs up. And at this point, remember, it's Betsy, Hank the Mule, the Flower Princess Ozga, and the Shaggy Man. And Betsy runs up and she's like, oh my God, like, you are so beautiful. Oh my God. Like, I can't even believe what you look like. Like, this is amazing.
We love Polychrome's a girl's girl.
Yeah.
She is. She's like, such a model. She's a Dor Delano.
I love that.
But Polychrome like looks up at Betsy, eyes full of tears, and it's just like, I'm the most miserable girl in the world.
God.
I didn't read it like that. She does say that.
It was probably something more like, I'm the most miserable girl in the world.
No, I'd wager that. But she like explains like because she lost her bow. And
Ew.
yeah, something really awful happens. My note is also ew. Shaggy Man thinks that she means beau, like Beau, like my like beau, like you call like a boyfriend a beau.
boyfriend.
Yeah.
So he's like, oh, like if you lost your bow, like take me, I'll be your beau.
Ew.
Okay, gross, but also, don't they know each other like
Yeah.
incredibly well?
Like they went through a whole adventure together that she was remembering a few seconds ago.
She hugged him goodbye before she went back home to the
Yeah.
rainbow.
So
So what's her response to that disgusting question?
It is, I don't want you. I want my rainbow. She's never seen this man in her life.
well,
Yeah, that's giving stranger danger.
Yes, it is
Yeah.
quite strange. The Shaggy Man basically tells her, like, I used to cry over the rainbow when I was young too, but I learned that I couldn't have it. So you basically just need to get over it. And what does Polly tell him?
she looks at him and she says that she doesn't like him.
Yeah. She says, I don't like you. So that is the moment.
She's mean.
But then Shaggy Man is like, oh, don't you? And he reaches into his pants and pulls out the love magnet.
You're disgusting.
And she goes wild. And she's like, Shaggy Man, oh, I love you. I love you. Oh, my God, of course. I devote my life to you. And she's hugging him.
This is so strange.
First of all, I'm like, take the love magnet away from that man.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah,
not
he's
right.
not using it responsibly.
But also, don't they know each other? Like, what? Like,
I am
it's-
so
They
confused.
went on
so
an entire
confusing.
journey together. He got Button Bright home to his pa.
Yeah,
He
literally.
did.
This whole exchange makes me think, like, when I was reading, I don't think this is the case, but when I was reading it, I was like, okay, there must be two Polychromes. And I'm just not understanding that Polychrome is just a princess.
name.
But then I'm like, but then it describes how she's more beautiful than the other ones and she's more risky. And then, like, I'm like,
It's
okay,
giving
well,
details.
I was like, Shaggy Man, okay, he's the brother, and the brother they're looking for is the actual Shaggy Man. But then I'm like, well, no, he came from Oz. So that, I can't make, it doesn't make sense.
I know that L. Frank
doesn't.
Baum like wrote like a bunch of shorts
Did they drink
and
from
plays.
that pond?
Oh,
Right?
oh my God, the Water of Oblivion.
Yeah.
he wrote like short stories and plays and like other books and shit. It is like kind of bizarre though, especially with like something that I feel like he does so beautifully is like reunions, where it's like, and then he saw his old friends and he wanted to weep with joy and he hugged them so close that it's like Polychrome, and when she's like lost and scared, seeing the Shaggy Man would be pretty awesome. I wish he went that route.
Yeah, I would have
but-
liked that.
But the good news is it doesn't even really matter because after like through the rest of this chapter and onward, like it's just like it's like Polychrome and the Shaggy Man just picked up where they left off in the other book. Like they're normal again.
Yeah, she's
And
seen the
it's like,
magnet now.
Yeah.
They're cool.
Yeah, so like it's like it doesn't even need to happen, but
Because everyone does kind of just become best friends immediately.
Yeah,
everyone's
of
really
course.
In
likable,
like a
I
really
guess.
weird way.
Yeah, they don't have any
Unnatural.
like, yeah, unnatural. That is.
But the Shaggy Man offers to let Polychrome join their group until she can find her family again. And she's like, okay, cool. Like, where are you guys going? And Betsy's like, we have no idea.
Don't know.
Don't know. And still no recollection.
Yeah.
But she's like, we're searching for the Shaggy Man's long lost brother who was kidnapped by the Metal Monarch.
And Polychrome like reviews the troops that are assembled here, and she's like, "You're a donkey, a mortal girl, a rose princess, and a Shaggy Man. You're gonna need some help if you're gonna defeat the Metal Monarch Ruggado."
Yeah.
And-
So she reads the news.
Yeah, seriously.
She's like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
But Betsy's like, oh, you know him? No.
No, but she knows about him. She's like, he's underground. Rainbows don't go underground, which gave me the idea that if there was an underground waterfall illuminated by like torches or even just like light from a light bulb, like would that make a waterfall or a waterfall? Would that make a rainbow?
Stop. I don't know.
I feel like I don't know why, or if my mind's just making something up right now, but I feel like I've seen a or a rainbow underground.
That's what I keep thinking too, and I don't know why. because
And I feel like I've
don't
only
think
been
that's
underground
true.
like twice.
Yeah,
but
and
one of those
I had a
times I
headlamp
saw
one time.
I
Those
saw
are
a
different
rainbow.
rainbows. Different rainbows, different rainbows' daughters.
Okay, well, whatever.
Oh.
That's true.
That's our truth.
Yeah, that's just how it has to be. I hate it, but it's also good to know if aliens are ever attacking us with rainbow power, we can all just go
Go
underground.
underground. Yeah, that's where it's safe.
But I mean, Polychrome famously knows of Ruggado and all of the trouble that he causes for people. And Princess Ozga asks Polychrome, she's like, are you afraid of the Gnome King?
And Polychrome says something insane.
Insane.
Which is
Like,
that
we're doing a
Yeah.
lot of thinking on this episode. Here's some more.
no one can harm a daughter of the rainbow, apparently.
Why?
Because she's a sky fairy. But what?
So
So what?
So what?
So like what if I try to stab you in the heart right now, is my hand gonna just like stop
Yeah.
in motion? And it's like no.
Yeah, like
No.
it's I get also that no fairies can die apparently, but I guess no one can harm her either.
I am very curious about
is it
what
like-
makes a fairy, though, because like
Oh my god.
we'll get there later in
the
today's
gnomes are described as
episode.
fairies.
Exactly, the gnomes are fairies, but I'm also like, well, the Scarecrow can't be killed, so he's a fairy. Ozma can't be killed, so she's a fairy.
Yeah.
Glinda can't be killed, so she's a fairy. She's a witch.
Well,
like
Well, no one in Oz.
everything's a fairy.
the people of Oogaboo say that they're fairies and that's why they can't be killed.
Okay, well, we've got some more coming up. We've got some more coming up that will bring this conversation back around. I'm just like, we're taking in a lot. We're taking in a lot this weekend.
This is a lot of information.
But Polychrome, is like, I'm a sky fairy, so I can't be killed. Betsy's like, well, then you'll have to point us to the Gnome King's cavern. She already said she doesn't know where that is. And she tells her as much. She's like, I don't know where that is, but I'd be happy to help you find it. So everyone's happy. Polychrome's joining them. The Shaggy Man, we're calling him Shaggy pretty exclusively this book, actually.
Yeah.
Shaggy finds a trail again, and he leads the way, and everyone's like, yay, we're back on our journey.
Yeah, and Polly's dancing as usual up and down the path ahead of them. And
She's like running ahead and then running.
But
Yeah.
it's not to stay warm this time. It's just because that's who she is. and
yeah,
that's what her
I
vibe
guess
is.
so.
Yeah.
I kind of
Well,
liked
that's why
the
she's
part where it
getting
was keep her
lost.
alive. Yeah, seriously, it's just her personality.
Mm-hmm.
But they're all following basically down this path. Occasionally Betsy is taking rides on Hank's back because she's getting tired. And then finally they just come to a little stream and they camp for the night. So nothing crazy. We don't get told much.
Get some really good luck finding a campground, and the next morning they get even better luck, like finding a bunch of like fruit and nut trees.
Nuts and
so
berries.
they're like eating.
Nuts and
this kind of like feeds into what we were just discussing, because Betsy notices that the Rose Princess Ozga is also eating all the fruit, like as they go. Like Betsy, Shaggy, Hank, and Ozga are all eating while Polychrome doesn't have to eat. And so Betsy kind of mentions this to Polychrome, and she's like, "What's with that? Like, I thought that Ozga was a fairy. Why would she have to eat?"
Well, when she was exiled from her people, she lost her fairyhood. When she was driven out of her land, she became a fairy no more, and she is now just like a mere mortal girl. Or woman. She's like a young woman.
But like Ozma eats, and Jalea Jam eats, and fucking someone else probably eats too. Glinda probably eats. She goes to dinner with them.
I don't know.
When it says the Scarecrow and the Tin Woodman and the Patchwork Girl don't eat, it doesn't say Ozma doesn't eat.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it emphasizes the people who don't eat, and then because everyone else is eating.
That's just kind of like
animals eat.
A little mind blowing to me, because I'm like, well, Ozma's a fairy too.
I see what you mean now with the fairy thing, but they're all fairy people. But like, I don't know. Also, no, maybe that's not it. I was gonna say that like Polychrome's a fairy outside of Oz too, but a China doll transported outside of the land of Oz in the first book would have become a normal doll outside. So maybe that's the difference.
We have to read like the original play that he's pulling from or something, I guess. But whatever.
We are reassured, though, that Polly still eats her dewdrops by moonlight. So she's still eating her little dew. She's just going "Meh," on little pieces of grass to get her dew. Yeah. So she's good.
I want to do that.
I know, right? Maybe one day. But very much like the last book, they are like, okay, we have to go to the mountains to find a natural entrance underground to get to the Gnome King's lair. Like, that's where his cavern is going to be. And it's interesting because I don't think of like, oh, go to the mountains to find a cave, but I guess that's true.
I know, and this
There's
isn't
not caves
the first
in the flatlands.
This isn't the first book we figured that out in, because when they were looking for the Dark Well, they were also like, well, we have to go to the mountains.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's just like, I would never have thought of that,
Maybe
but it
that's
makes
just
perfect
known in
sense.
Oz that the caves are in the mountains.
That's
You
true
know
too,
what?
actually.
Isn't like Missouri that
Missouri's the cave state. I was just
there's
gonna
not
say
a lot
that.
of mountains there?
It's pretty like hilly though. I guess that might be lava formations too, though.
But they are ready to continue their trip, and they just know, like, as long as they're on a path, they're good to go, because it doesn't matter what direction they move. Like, they are so lost that they're just like, find cave, that means mountains.
Yeah.
There are mountains on every side of them except for the way they're coming from, because that is wherever they came from. The Rose
the
Kingdom
beach and the rose,
sea.
yeah.
So they're walking and they're walking, and they follow this faint old path for a ways, and it leads them to this crossroads. And like, the path they're walking on is almost fully overgrown. Like, it's just very faint, but like, there's obviously something here. And when they get to this crossroads, they realize there's a signpost, but it's so old, there's no words on it.
Yeah, totally faded.
There's also like an old dried up well that doesn't even have a bucket. It just has like the chain with the hook that a bucket used to be on.
Yeah.
It's giving horror.
No civilization anywhere around this. It doesn't make any sense that there's roads and a well here.
Yeah.
And a sign.
And Hank goes over to the well, and Betsy's like, oh, he must be thirsty. And Shaggy's like, there's no water in that well. There's probably not been water there
Samara,
for years.
the girl from Ring, is gonna come out of
Oh,
that shit.
Yeah.
So basically, like, this crossroads, it's like 10 paths. Like, so they're like, well, where the fuck do we go? It's not like there's 2 paths to choose from. Like, how could we decide? And so they're like sitting there, and they're kind of trying to like discuss that, even though we know they just need to go toward the mountains in general. But like, they're trying to make their decision.
Hank will not give up on this well.
Yeah, obsessed.
He puts like his front feet up on it, and he's standing on his hind
He's gonna
feet. He
fall in.
puts his head over
break
the
his
well.
leg.
That's exactly what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
Fortunately, he just goes, like
Yeah.
into the well. So it's like,
Okay.
He's
I would do that
hee-hawing
one
for
time
the gods.
too.
Yeah.
Hello.
And Betsy is like, okay, like he must see something down there. Like, what is that? And so she and Shaggy go over to the well to like go investigate and like see what's going on. And Polly and Ozga, meanwhile, are like kikiing over on the side. They're like best friends now because they're both fairy girls, I guess.
Yeah.
But they're having fun in a good way, and they're probably also discussing some of Ozga's problems.
So they look over the edge, and Shaggy's like, it looks like there might be something in there.
Yeah,
And-
it's a deep well. Well,
Yeah.
the size of a normal well, but there's something in the bottom. He can tell that.
Yeah. So Betsy's like, drop the bucket. Like, let's. Oh wait, they don't even have a bucket. What do they do?
Well, they have a hook. The hook that the chain is attached to. He basically does like it's like a quarter or not quarter machine. It's like one of those like claw machines. He's just like swings it around until he feels like he gets something, and then like it has like the winch or whatever on the chain. So then they pull it up, and he pulls and pulls. It's not very heavy, and it is a hoop skirt.
What's a?
I
Like,
think it's those things that held out
so-
Victorian women's dresses.
Yes,
you know,
it
that
made the
poofy.
dress all poofy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a lot of this. We're actually not even told all of it, but it is a lot of physical comedy. We really think we're about to find something. They pull out a skirt. We really think we're about to find something. They pull out a wrench. Like it's
Yeah.
just like funny, like dumb shit. Shaggy's about to give up,
That's not
but he
fucking
tries
funny.
one more time. The hook
And
catches on something.
so it's pretty heavy this time. And Shaggy is
It's
like,
a man.
we got a big one. Yeah, and he's like, Betsy, like, I'm actually going to need your help. So they're pulling and pulling, and it's actually like really heavy.
Oh, no.
But finally, when they get to the top, it's just this big, like, mass of metal, basically. Like, it looks kind of like scrap metal. Like, Betsy can't really understand what it is.
And the Shaggy Man is like, this is a surprise.
Is it TikTok?
Betsy asks what it is. So the Shaggy Man puts the copper thing on the ground and he kind of like situates it. And it's a copper man.
Well, Shaggy Man is like, okay, this doesn't make any fucking sense. And unless there are two metal men in the world, I can't explain this. Because he knows TikTok is back at Oz. Like, this.
He was just there.
Like, he was just there.
So he doesn't recognize this one.
Well, it looks like TikTok, he thinks.
oh, okay.
But he doesn't
But
understand,
He's like,
like-
there's no way he'd be just in
Yeah,
this
he's like,
well.
in the
it's
bottom
been
of a
like
well.
4 days. How did he get into the middle of nowhere?
Yeah,
Yeah.
into this well.
So Polychrome and Ozga come back and Polychrome's like, what'd you find? And the Shaggy Man's like, I have either found an old friend or a complete stranger.
Wind him up.
Yeah. So
Right.
Betsy notices that there's a sign on his back and she kneels down to read it. This sign is quite familiar. It says Smith and Tinker's patent double action, extra responsive, thought creating, perfect talking mechanical man, fitted with our special clockwork attachment. Thinks, speaks, acts, and does everything but live.
Directions for using. For thinking, wind the clockwork man under his left arm, mark number 1. For speaking, wind the clockwork man under his right arm, mark number 2. And for walking and action, wind clockwork man in the middle of his back, mark number 3.
And
NB.
we looked up what that meant once upon a time. I don't
Yeah.
remember.
Northbound.
Northbound.
Northbound. This mechanism is guaranteed to work perfectly for 1,000 years.
So we know this sign. So, like you said, is it TikTok? Like, this seems like it would be TikTok.
Yeah.
But Shaggy Man is standing here saying that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But Polychrome is like, well, if that thing is guaranteed to work 1,000 years, maybe we should wind it up. There's no way it's
Yeah.
been there for 1,000 years. That well hasn't been here for 1,000 years. You know?
Yeah. So they try and get him up on his feet, and there's a lot of like him falling over and then having to like really settle him up. But they finally get it done, and Shaggy is like, okay, like this is TikTok. Like now that I'm like standing him up, like this is him, but like I do not understand why he is here and not in Oz. Like why is he down in a dry well?
Yeah. So Betsy fortunately finds TikTok's key
very fortunately.
hanging on his back? Because I'm pretty sure when Dorothy found TikTok locked
It
up,
was just in the
it was
sand.
somewhere else.
Yeah,
it was,
it was.
yeah,
She
they
had
found
to
the
go-
key
she had to go
first.
find
Yeah.
it. Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah.
God.
But so fortunately, it's just attached to him. And Betsy's like, well, what part should I wind up first? And Polychrome's like, well, wind up his thoughts, because if you don't wind up his thoughts, he's not going to know how to move or speak.
Yeah. So the first thing she does is she winds up his thoughts, and then she goes and winds up his speaking machinery. And immediately this thing says, many thanks. So just like TikTok. Shaggy Man is delighted. And he's like, okay, this is TikTok. He like says hurrah.
He's like, I know him.
Yeah, he like slaps him on the back. TikTok falls over and he starts going, pick me up, pick me up, pick me up, pick me up, pick me up. It
That's
writes it like
TikTok.
10 times. Yeah, exactly. So they get him back up.
Shaggy is like, what's going on, TikTok?
Yeah, how
Like,
the hell did you get into a well?
yeah. So
Yeah.
TikTok's like, it is a long story, but I will make it short.
Thank God.
Yeah.
He tells us that after Shaggy left to find his brother.
Embrace yourself for some things that are not going to make sense.
Yes. Actually, yeah. Ozma kept an eye on him in her magic picture. So Ozma saw that the Shaggy Man was in all these like crazy, strange places, but he wasn't actually getting any closer to his brother, who was with the Gnome King.
Mm-hmm.
But when she found his brother in the magic picture, she was like, "Great! I'm gonna send the Shaggy Man to his brother with my magic." Just kidding.
She sent TikTok.
She sent TikTok to this
Yeah.
random ass well in the middle of the desert.
So she sent TikTok.
Sometimes I love Ozma. I do. But her decisions, she shouldn't be in charge.
Here's the thing.
Well-
she used Glinda's magic to move TikTok, so both those bitches is wrong.
Oh my
Well,
God.
Okay, so here's the thing. Shaggy Man saw his brother in the Glinda's book. Okay, that's how he found out that his brother was missing. Or he like read about him or whatever, but he's been missing for 10 years. So yeah, I don't understand why Ozma didn't just look in her fucking picture and say, "Oh, he's with Roquat the Red." Because when we met Shaggy earlier in this book, he was like, "Yeah, I'm looking for my brother. Don't know where he is, but I'm pretty sure he's down
There's
here."
only one thing.
So
that
number
could've
one,
happened.
yeah, why didn't Ozma see him already? And then number two, if Glinda can transport TikTok to be a messenger, then why didn't she just transport the fucking brother back to Oz? Like, that's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
And what about the magic belt? I'm glad it's not here. I'm fine with it, but I'm just saying.
It was like 2
Exactly.
books ago. Or last book.
It's no, not last.
No.
No, it was 2 books ago.
Yeah,
I think it was two.
And even
the
then,
last time we used the magic belt was to defeat the Gnome King last time.
oh my god, by sand.
The dust, yeah. But
God.
I mean, you're absolutely right. Like, none of it makes any sense. We could have brought the brother back. We could have sent Shaggy Man to his brother. We could have sent TikTok to Shaggy Man. We could have
And
sent
also
TikTok
not
and
in
Shaggy
a
Man.
well.
Exactly.
So, well,
well.
okay. So,
Well.
Well, I accidentally licked the microphone when I did that.
And that's your personal spit cover. We all have our own.
yeah.
Do
And yours is really stained.
drenched.
Yeah. But what we find out is that TikTok ended up having an altercation with the Gnome King. Ozma sent him to tell the Shaggy Man, but somehow he ended up meeting with the Gnome King, and the Gnome King found out what TikTok was doing, and he threw him down the well.
Yeah, like Glinda accidentally sent him to the Gnome King instead of the Shaggy Man.
What? What?
And instead of
Women
killing,
shouldn't be in charge.
instead of killing,
The wizard, this never would have happened.
honestly though, and so forth is pretty sick. I like her.
I think and so forth is unjust and rebellious.
Well, all of that, but so's every villain. Please.
Oh, I see.
But yeah, none of it makes any sense. I also don't know why the Gnome King didn't just kill TikTok. Like, instead, he left him down there until all of his functions unwound. And he had
Everyone
to
keeps
wait.
doing that.
It's always some king
Yeah.
throwing him in a
It's,
pit.
At least he
Um,
didn't throw away the key.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank God. He was like, it's for finding. But yeah, thank God the gang found him. So many questions. But the Shaggy Man takes all of this in stride and says, well, that's great news because I knew my brother was with the Gnome King. Now you've just confirmed it. Now I know for sure. So yeah, we're off to see Ruggedo, the wonderful Ruggedo of the ground.
Yeah. Because and so they ask like, oh, like, well, how do they get to the cavern? But Tik-Tok doesn't know. He says they can walk there.
The best way is to walk.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, we get it. But Polly is like, hey, like the thing is the Gnome King has hidden entrances all over the world, but they're hidden from mortals. So like you're not going to find it. You're not going to search it out. Like you just have to like have good luck basically.
Yeah.
And Betsy is like, well, let's just choose one of these roads at random and like make our way there.
So as they're looking at the different roads, they're trying to choose which one to go through. They hear this sound of like, it's a bunch of feet like moving
I thought
together.
that was a horse.
Yeah, I started too fast. I did start too fast. It's more like fa 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 fa. Betsy like goes in the direction of the sound. She looks down the path and she sees the Oogaboo army marching toward the crossroads.
Yeah.
And she screams, an army! And she's like, should we run or should we hide?
Yeah, those are the only two.
Yeah. She's not open to opinions. She's like, we are running or hiding.
Well,
which
They
is
are
it?
kind of. It is kind of intimidating.
It is, yeah.
Stand your
They're
ground
lost.
is not happening.
Yeah.
But Shaggy says, stay right there. We are going to stand here. We're not afraid of armies.
Recruit.
Yeah, we're what?
Recruit.
Oh, recruit. I thought you said we're crew. And I was like, yeah, we're crew. But I don't want to say that on the air unless I know what it means. But yeah, Shaggy's like, we're not afraid of any army. If they're friendly, they'll help us. And if they're enemies, I've got a little love magnet, don't I?
I mean, that's the best way to use it compared to all the
Yeah.
other times you've used it.
We never even had to see the thing the last time we saw the love
Yeah,
magnet.
that's true. He never had to
Now-
take it out of
yeah.
his pants.
Now he has to show it to you out of his wiener. But like,
Oh my God.
but honestly, I like that better. It makes more sense. It gives rules to the magic.
It was still a good rule and people just liked him.
He was a thief and a crook. I'm glad he has to decide when to pull it out now.
He was a thief and a crook.
And that is the end of chapter 7, Polychrome's pitiful plight. And Blake, what would you call that plight?
I would call that plight found and wound.
Chapter 8, Tik-Tok tackles a tough task. I fucking hate seeing these chapters.
Yeah. I hate hearing them because immediately once like all the same letters happen,
You
my
can't
brain
even hear
turns
it.
off.
Yeah.
My brain turns off.
It's very like suffer and thakataff.
It becomes nonsense.
So at the beginning of this chapter, the gang stands their ground as the army of Oogaboo approaches. Finally, Private Files, leading the charge, he comes out of the trees carrying the flag of Oogaboo.
And he plants it in the ground, and he says that this land is the land of Oogaboo, and all inhabitants are now their slaves.
He did not even look up. He does not even know that our friends are standing
Yeah,
here.
he doesn't even know.
Some of the officers poke their heads out of the bushes, and they're like, is the coast clear? And he's like, there's no coast, but all's well. Come on out. Because they're not on the coast. They're in the middle of the desert. Ha, ha, ha.
And there's a well.
And in response to all's well, what he's saying is that all there is a well, and they come out like, I hope there's water in it.
They
It's
need
like,
my brain can't do that.
Yeah.
It's easier to read.
Oh, yeah, I guess that makes more sense.
But if someone said it to me, I wouldn't get the joke, and I would just say, okay, cool. Oh, there's a well.
Yeah, literally.
But they are interested in the well, and they're like, oh, like, we need water. And so one of the generals like comes out from behind a tree, and he's
Is
like
there
going to
Joe
the well.
Bucket?
It's this I think is Joe Plum.
Is there a Joe Bucket?
Oh no, wait, there's not.
I don't know.
Okay.
I was just
like,
hoping.
I could see that being a thing. Doesn't matter here though, no. But yeah, it's Joe Cone who's like, I hope there's water. And he's the one who catches sight of Tik-Tok and Shaggy. And he immediately falls to his knees, just like shaking and crying.
Yeah. and he's
This is
shouting
their
his
military?
surrender. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. There are
Oh my
17
God.
adult men on the ground rolling around saying they surrender and they'll
Mercy,
be
please, enemies.
slaves
mercy.
forever. Like they'll do anything, just don't kill them or whatever.
That's why they don't do the fighting.
Yeah.
That's why they're farmers.
Yeah.
But Files, like, he turns around because he hears all this and he sees the people standing there. And he checks them out for a moment and he realizes, like, 3 of them are young women. And he, like, takes off his cap and he bows politely.
Yeah.
He's all over the place.
He's everywhere. He's everything everywhere all at once.
Yeah.
I promise.
So Anne finally appears, she makes it to the front and she's pissed and she's like, what the fuck is, like, why are all my officers on the ground crying? And at this point, the Shaggy Man does his introductions, which I'm like, okay, good. Someone do something. And he's like, oh, like, this is Tik-Tok the Machine Man, or the Clockwork Man. He works better than some, quote, meat men, may I add. So we're still doing meat men here.
Princess Ozga of Roseland, who has been exiled from the Kingdom of Roses.
Polychrome, the Lost Sky Fairy.
Betsy Bobbin from some unknown earthly paradise called Oklahoma.
I
We
know.
did not learn that Betsy Bobbin was a normal American girl.
Also,
I thought she was a fairy person.
I
well,
thought she was
it would
from
have
like,
made
the
sense
US.
because they're in
but-
Oz. How'd
You're
you
not-
get there?
You're not supposed to get there.
Well, they're not in Oz, though.
You're not. Fair.
Oh.
Because the people of Oogaboo, they were diverted.
But they're in the fairy country.
yeah, they're in a
They're
fairy
in
country.
a fairy country.
Yeah.
The people of
But maybe
Oogaboo are in Oz.
Oh,
or
that's
were
right,
in Oz,
because-
but then Glinda sent
Yeah.
them out.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So they're just
Kickstarted
in
it.
this like desert
And there was
nowhere.
Shaggy. Shaggy can get back in.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
hope so.
Yeah.
Jeez Louise. I mean, Ozma can look in her picture and see where he is. So she's going to see that he has like 74 new fucking friends.
Yeah,
Yeah,
literally.
hopefully. Hopefully.
Little do they know why that army's there.
Yeah. Well.
Also
we'll see.
introduces Hank the Mule, who has a long tail and a short temper.
And On says, or
Did they say
Anne,
that about him before?
No, that's
No,
the first.
but they
Okay.
did imply that he was irritable. I think by the way he treated the gardener in the
royal
last
gardener.
chapter. Or
But the
last
gardener
episode.
started it.
It's true.
And that's the thing with Hank. You always,
Self-defense.
if you don't
Yeah.
start none, there won't be none. He comforted a little girl in a storm on the sea.
Yeah.
Like he,
Okay.
if you fuck with him, he will fuck right back.
We got a
And
Hank
that's
stan.
my experience.
Yeah.
But I think that that's kind of part of what Shaggy's doing by saying that is he's like, this is our backup. So he's short to temper.
Okay.
They don't need
Protection,
backup. They have a
protection.
love magnet. But the the queen, Anne, to all of this just says, "Pah." She doesn't give a fuck. She's like, you guys are worthless. Like, I don't even want to conquer
She's
you.
like, you sound like a bunch of fucking orphans. We
Yeah,
don't
she's like,
need
you're all
that."
lost and like dejected. Like, none of you have a home. Like, what the fuck? And Betsy is like, well, actually, we're not conquered yet. So you actually didn't even conquer us. So, yeah. Why don't you chill?
And also, we do have homes.
yeah. Yeah. And also, they're just not at home
Bitch.
right now. Some of
But-
them are rich.
Private Files is like, yeah, we haven't conquered you yet, but as soon as as soon as my officers tell me to do so, I'm gonna be on your ass like white on rice, bitch. And so he's like waiting for his officers to do that. They like get back up on their feet because they're like, oh yeah, these people aren't a threat. And Queen Anne tells our gang of misfits this book. She's like, you need to understand something right now. I'm Queen Anne of Oogaboo. This is my invincible army, and we are working on conquering the world. Are you part of the world? Yes, you are. So, like, she is just like, she is
Also, you guys are not
monologuing for the
unstoppable. You
gods.
literally
Yeah,
almost
seriously.
got. You actually have
Yeah.
been getting stopped the whole time.
That's
Yeah, they've
what she
only had
says.
problems.
She's like, you're standing in the way of my army, so watch what happens. And just so you know, you are so pathetic to me, you don't even deserve what we're about to do to you. Like, you are so nothing. We're about to waste energy on killing you. Which is pretty cool.
She's Crazy. I bet
Yeah.
Files was
Crazy
like,
hot.
Yeah, that was Files. He's like, that's my girl.
But Shaggy Man is like, yeah, go ahead and conquer us. Like, whatever. Like, what does that even mean? And Betsy is like, but we'll never be your slaves. Like, Betsy just wants to get the last word in. But Anne is pissed.
She
And
quite literally says, "We'll see about that."
yeah. Yeah. And she commands Files to bind the enemy's hand to foot, which I think just means a hog tie.
Yeah, hog tie. Now everybody, shut the fuck up. What does Files do?
Files looks at 12-year-old Betsy, the Rose Princess, and Polychrome, and he's like, I'm not going to do that. That'd be impolite. Like, these are just like little girls, like young, like Betsy's like a little girl, and like the other ones are like young women, basically. And he's like, no, like that would be a bad thing.
Oh, wow.
So it's pretty
And
different than what we might have thought of him before.
I literally,
Totally.
I thought he would just like
But-
shoot him execution style.
But Anne is literally like, it is your duty to obey orders. And Files is like, yeah, the orders of my officers, and they didn't tell me to do anything, so I'm not doing anything.
But then all of them do.
They
The
say-
generals, the majors, the colonels, the captain.
So what does he do?
they tell him to bind him.
yeah.
Why
but-
don't they do it?
So
Well, they're officers,
Here's the
so
thing.
Oh, because they have to. Yeah.
yeah.
Hank cannot handle all this noise. They're all like all the commanders, all the generals.
Everyone's
the majors.
fighting.
So they're all like, "You must do it. Go do it. Everybody do it."
Ah, get out!
Hank-
Get out there! Hang
Hank-
about! Hank, get
Mob.
Yeah, it's a mob.
But Hank hates the noise. He just like backs his ass up and starts kicking.
Yes.
He's going crazy.
He's hee-hawing. He's just fucking
Oh,
bouncing
hell
back and
yeah.
forth. It's
They
crazy.
drop their swords. They run. They hide behind trees. They hide under bushes and so forth. Is like, Private Files, go get those prisoners. And she has to go and run because Hank is like kicking
Yeah.
at her.
And
Oh my God.
we are told that Hank doesn't care if the enemy is a woman. He will clock her.
Yeah.
And he's like
Said,
chasing
"Actually,
her.
I'm different than
Yeah.
Files.
But Betsy does put an arm around like Hank's neck and just kind of like pulls him in. She reels him in. And she's like,
Yeah.
"Hey, buddy, like, yeah, you're good." Like, she's laughing too. Like, she's like, this,
Oh
like,
yeah, her
oh
and
my God.
Polychrome
Like,
are cracking.
yeah, but she holds
Oh
him
my
back. She holds him
God.
back.
because it's like an entire army just got taken down by a mule who survived a fucking shipwreck.
Yeah, after they
Yeah.
just like threaten them, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, seeing that Betsy has like grabbed Hank, the officers start to come out. They're grabbing their dropped swords and stuff. And Anne screams again. She's like, "Files, bind those prisoners."
And he says no.
He says no.
No.
And he throws down his gun, which I probably wouldn't do. I would probably hold on to that.
Yeah, protect yourself.
But he throws down his gun and he throws down his knapsack on the ground.
And he resigns.
That was the thing that makes him. He seemed like
He was
was.
crazy,
Yeah,
right?
he seemed
Okay.
like this was his lifelong dream.
The thing
I
is, though,
agree.
something that I think maybe like we didn't develop fully in our thought process before is that it's emphasized that Files reads all these storybooks. So he has this like hero mindset mentality, go on your adventure, win the thing. And he wanted to be a hero. He was like, no, I want to do the fighting. Like, I want to come back with
he
glory.
didn't think that his first enemy. Well, his first enemy was a dragon, and then what?
Yeah.
His second enemy are little girls.
Yeah, it's like
Fair.
that's going.
He
way
shot his
back.
gun when he needed to.
But
Yeah.
their plan was to go to the Emerald City and
Well-
overtake everything. And the Emerald City is like lawful good.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. But he does say like, hey, like I joined this army to be a hero and to defeat like enemies and like whatever, but I did not come here to like bind up harmless girls. And that's the truth. Like if the women of the Emerald City were throwing like I don't know, fucking darts at him, he'd probably do something maybe. But these are just like girls like or anybody. They're just gentle people who are like
They're
not
minding their
doing
business.
anything. Yeah. And so I get that kind of.
Yeah. I still think he painted a very different picture when he enlisted. But
Yeah.
I'm glad he makes the decision that he makes.
Yes.
And Private Files walks over to like our group of friends and he shakes hands with Shaggy and he shakes hands with TikTok and so forth screams, "Treason!"
Yeah.
And all of the
Treason!
officers scream it after her like, "Treason!"
Treason. And File says that it's not treason. He has the right to resign whenever he wants to.
She says, no, you do not.
Yeah, and he doesn't. I don't think he does in
That's
this
not-
system.
you don't have the right to resign as a private in the U.S. military.
Yeah, you can't resign from your job. Like, you can't resign from your government position, your military position, when you want to. That's just
And
not it.
is like, if you resign, my army will be broken up, and then the world will not be conquered by Oogaboo. So what you're doing is traitorism. And she turns to the officers, and she asks them a favor.
Well, she basically explains to them, like, hey, like, the thing is, if there's no one to fight for us, then, like, we can't win any wars, and we're not going to get any plunder. None of us are going to be fed. You're going to be exhausted. We're going to be beaten by a different enemy, and then you're going to be enslaved.
It's like, so
Do you want to be slaves?
hate to ask this of you, but will you go get Private Files and bring him back here, please?
You can't. You
Well-
can't do that.
They all, because they've been threatened with the idea that they could become slaves if they don't do this, they all draw their swords and rush over toward Files.
Files is ready. He looks. It
Where's
says
his gun?
he looks crazy. His gun's on the ground, but he is ready to fucking take them on with his hands if he has to.
Okay.
As they're all charging, the Shaggy Man steps in next to Files.
And he reaches into his pants and pulls out the love magnet. And all the officers fall to the ground, like weeping and bowing to him and telling how much they love him.
Even Anne.
Okay.
Anne runs up, throws herself on him, and is like embracing him and telling him how much she loves him, and just like letting it all come out.
It just gets crazier and crazier every single time he whips it out.
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
Well, this time
The Shaggy Man gets like a little uncomfortable with it.
Yeah.
Like
he puts it away, and he's like, "Hey, no, thank you."
I might
he's
be
like,
overdoing
okay.
it.
He like puts it in his pocket. He's like, so we're all friends here. All right, so let's just back up.
Yeah,
back up.
he forcibly removes the queen from his body.
Dang.
But the Oogabooites are on their side now because they like the Shaggy Man. And the Shaggy Man tells the Oogabooites that if they want to conquer the world, they need to conquer everyone under the surface too.
Yeah. And that includes Ruggedo, the metal monarch who lives in the world just under it.
Anne says, who is that? Which is what I said last episode.
Yeah. That was me.
But Shaggy tells her that he's the Metal Monarch, the king of the gnomes, and Major Stockings asks a very important question. Is the Gnome King rich?
Well, he happens to own all the metal under the earth and claim to own all the metal above it. So
And the gems, too. That's why
Okay.
they wanted to take the Emerald City.
that's okay. It didn't say that in the book, but I had my literal note is, are we forgetting he owns all the gemstones? Because
Yeah.
it doesn't mention it in this book. But
Yeah, they're
they're really
to talk
pivoting
about
to metal monarch.
He talked about copper and tin before he talked about rubies and shit.
Yeah, it's crazy. But either way, it's all about the metal. And frankly, if you own all the metal on the earth, you're still super rich. So whatever.
But the officers, they decide, they're like, that's plunder. That's gonna do for us.
Yeah.
So Anne is figuring out how she's gonna play this. And she's watching Files, who is sitting down whispering in the Princess Ozga's ear.
Isn't that interesting?
Isn't
Like,
that bizarrely
are they like
interesting?
flirting?
So they're dating.
I think they're
It
I
feels
think
like
that they're
they're-
like, that's her boyfriend now.
Yeah.
They're in love.
Okay,
You
well
don't
that's
just whisper
crazy.
in someone's ear.
And Anne is like, well, my officers can't fight, but I don't have a private, so like I can't conquer anyone. So like, what are we supposed to do?
Yeah. Shaggy's like, well, make one of your officers a private. The officers are like, no.
Yeah.
No. But Anne, like, she's playing a game here. And she shakes her head and she's like, no, I'm sorry. That's impossible. I mean, a private needs to be a great fighter. And my officers, they can't fight. And Colonel Plum agrees. He's like, yeah, we're super brave at commanding. We are not great at engaging in physical
Oh
war.
We're
my God.
brave every way other than fighting, is what he
Sure.
says.
They all agree.
Sure.
Yeah.
But Anne, she like turns to Shaggy Man. She's like, see my trouble? I mean, if Files didn't prove himself to be a traitor and a deserter, I mean, we could totally overthrow Ruggado. She wants him back. She's seeing him whispering in another girl's ear, and she wants him back. But yeah, she's like, I need Private Files back, basically. Like, she's like finding every reason. Files is like, just make the Shaggy Man your private. And she's like, oh, but he's immortal. He could be killed. You wouldn't be killed. He'll
Well,
be
also, she's
killed.
under the influence of the love magnet. So I actually read this as more sincere. Like, well, the Shaggy Man can die, and that's not okay because I fucking love him.
Yeah.
And you
I mean,
can't die.
one line of about 6 or 7 applies to the Shaggy Man. So I do believe she's being sincere in that one specific moment about the Shaggy Man.
Mhm.
But all of it, she's trying to get her private back. I mean,
Yeah.
that she obviously has a very clear goal.
She's selfish and also manipulated.
Yeah. But and she's like, yeah, I just don't want anything to happen to Shaggy. Shaggy's like, even more than that, it would be insulting for me to be your private because I'm the commander of this expedition. You're going for treasure. That I'm bringing you along and offering you the treasure. You're coming with me to help me get my brother. I'm in charge here, just so everyone knows.
Yeah. Okay, the
which-
man.
Yeah, which they seem to be okay with.
The officers basically at this point, they want the plunder pretty bad. So they begin to scheme. And they gather together with their little heads and they discuss and they come up with a recommendation. Make the Clockwork Man the private. TikTok hates it.
He's
Stop
like-
making people privates.
Yeah.
TikTok is like, who? Me? No.
He reminds us that they want him to be the private in the army to fight Ruggado, who already threw him down a well and like would have killed him.
He's like, I can't,
Like-
that thing literally picked me up. I
Yeah,
can't
there's
fight it.
not much I can do for you.
But Polly does point out that he could use Files' gun this time. And I'm imagining TikTok like grabbing that gun and it doing like a transformer thing where it like integrates into his arm and he gets
It's like the Evil
all the
Dead.
wires.
yeah.
connect.
Yeah. And it's just like it just becomes part of him. And that's what I want. I want my reality to be him with a cannon arm.
Oh my
I could
God,
see-
That's pretty sick.
I could see the gun shooting, ricocheting off of him, and then hitting someone in the
Oh
eye.
my god.
Yeah.
Ah. No.
But TikTok is like, yes, the gun, sure, but what if my functions run down?
Yeah.
Like he can't run, he can't fight. Like
It's
he
just, like, not the
depends. It's not what he's made
best
for.
choice.
He depends on being wound up by people. Like he can't just do these things. He couldn't even pick a road earlier. Remember?
Yeah.
But Betsy is like, I'll keep you wound up. And Shaggy is like, yeah, it's a good idea. Like everyone is telling him
Why
he
are they
has to
trying
do
to?
this.
Yeah.
The other thing is
He was
There's-
just thrown in a well.
there's no one else in this group who could do it. Like it's the officers could, but they won't. So okay.
Yeah.
Like so Shaggy also won't do
I
it.
mean, one of the girls could.
I don't think they could. Well,
No,
Betsy's a
because
child.
Anne already wouldn't
they're
accept a girl
children.
when she was
Oh, you're
back
right.
in Oogaboo.
Oh, that's right.
He was like, take my
Yeah.
wife. And she was like, I need an army of men.
Yeah, that's right.
Um,
Like I agree that TikTok is not a. I mean, he probably is the best choice
just-
though. He
He's
can't
the
be
second
killed.
best.
I mean,
He-
Shaggy
yeah, Files
says
is the
Shaggy
best.
says as much.
Well,
he's like
or
he's
yeah.
like talking TikTok into it, and he's like, "Look, you can't get very hurt, and this army isn't going to join us unless they have a private. Their private refuses to do it. You're not going to die. Just do it."
Why is this his
So-
problem now?
Yeah, he just got out of a well 5 fucking
I'm
seconds ago.
annoyed
ago.
for him.
But so TikTok asks what he would need to do, and Anne tells him he really just needs to obey the orders of his officers, and that's all.
And he asks if he gets a salary.
Good question.
Do I get benefits?
Yeah, but they tell him he gets part of the plunder. So
What does Files say?
well, File says that half the plunder goes to the queen, the other half gets divided among the officers, and then the private gets what's left.
And poor
So nothing.
TikTok says, that sounds satisfactory.
It's not.
He just agreed to $0 fucking dollars. And then he picks up the gun and he's like looking down the barrel of it and trying
Yeah,
to figure out what it is.
he's
'cause
literally-
he's never seen a gun in his life.
Never seen a gun before, so he's just like twirling it around like a baton
Oh my
and
God.
like smacking it on his knee, and it's just like
It makes me like really sad for him. He's like, $0, yes, thank you, and then stares down the barrel of the gun. How devastating.
The imagery.
oh my god.
But Anne hands TikTok the knapsack. He puts it over his shoulder, and she says, "Okay, officers, command him to march." And the generals draw their swords, and they say, "Fall in." Then the colonels and the majors and the captains.
And TikTok just kind of looks around and he's like, "Fall into the well again."
Yeah, they're like, "No, no, 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 no."
Like, no, fall into a line. You just need to be ready to march. Like, Files like helps him out a little
Something
bit.
happened to him in that well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He's like, "Shall I go back to the well?"
So
Everyone's like,
the
"No."
well.
TikTok. Oh my god.
Fare thee well, to thee well. But TikTok is all ready. He's standing up straight with his gun on his back. He has no idea what the hell's going on. And Anne asks Shaggy which road they need to take to the Metal Monarch's cavern. And Shaggy tells her he don't know.
And she's pissed off.
She hates that.
Yeah.
After all this,
Yeah. She's like, okay, like, we have to.
Stole one of
I
his
know.
people.
Well, and because Shaggy is like, well, we were actually talking about that when you came here.
We
like,
already were doing a thing,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
you took
Yeah.
one of our
and
people.
Anne
Yeah.
is like so insufferable. She's like, well, then keep doing it.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Literally, she's like, keep going. We can't conquer if we can't
She's
find.
so funny.
So
I
they
love her.
Yeah,
they all begin to think again. They're all just kind of go back to the drawing board and they're like, oh well, there's all these roads. Like, what are we supposed to fucking do?
So,
And so interestingly, File and Ozga are close friends already,
they've become very well acquainted.
and they begin walking down one of the roads and find that it's bordered with wildflowers on both sides.
Files turns to the princess, all lover boy all of a sudden, and he's like, why don't you ask the flowers to tell you the way? And she's like, the flowers? And Files is like, well, they must be your second cousins or something. You're the Rose Princess. Just ask them and they'll tell you.
And so there's lots of flowers around. There's like dandelions, there's little bluebells and buttercups and like all sorts of shit, and even some nice little wild roses. And so Ozga sees the roses and she's like, I mean, I am a rose, I guess. Like,
try.
so she kind of like gets on her knees and she like spreads her arms out and she's just like looking at the flowers. And she asks them, pretty cousins, please tell us which way will lead us to the Gnome King.
All of the flowers gracefully lean to the right, and their flower heads nod 3 times in that direction, and then they just stand right back up straight.
Whoa.
Ozga stands up, and she's like, do you think that was the wind?
Yeah.
Files is like, no, ma'am, there is no wind.
Wind doesn't do
blowing."
that.
Yeah, he was
No.
like, no fucking way. He was like, we figured it out.
Aww.
All of a sudden, they're super cute.
That is actually the
and
cutest
I
thing. He
love
just like
it.
showed her. He just showed her like a superpower.
Yeah, seriously.
Just because he's like, you're a rose.
I literally texted Wyatt earlier today, and I was like, okay, the flower thing was super cute. And he was like, it was super cute. Also, here's my idea for tonight's cocktail. And
Yeah.
that's the cocktail we had tonight.
Wildflower wisdom.
Oh yeah.
There you go. And that is the end of chapter 8. TikTok Tactical's a tough task. And Blake, what would you TikTok that?
A case for the existence of flower power. Thank you for listening to Oz Hour. Please join us next time as we continue with Chapter 9, Ruggido's Rage is Rash and Reckless. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Oz Hour Podcast for the latest on everything Oz. Stone and Wyatt Swingham. Co-hosted by Hannah Aguirre. Audio production by Charlie Johnson. Theme music written and performed by Rudy Klobus. Cover art by Valentin